All right, here's the technique for today. This is called low poly art, and it uses polygons, triangles, squares, pentagons, hexagons, to create a picture, an image reminiscent of our photograph. So it's going to look like a picture, and we're actually going to use a real picture to come up with the design. So here's another one. Horse. There's a whole bunch of these little guys, and they're really easy to make. So what I want you to do is find an animal, bring it into Photoshop, and cut the background off of it so it looks like this, and then save it and bring it into Illustrator so you can export. After you get it done in Photoshop, cut the background off in Photoshop, bring it into Illustrator so we can trace it. So I'll have you guys do that. I picked a parrot, cut the background off, and I'm left with this. So go find an animal. It can be the face of an animal. It can be an entire animal. And don't search for low poly animal. Search for just a regular old animal. To cut out the background, we're going to use the lasso tool. It's right here. And you're going to just go around the outside of the fox or outside of the animal that you have. You can do a polygon lasso if you want to, or you just draw on like a rough. It's the third tool down. So once you get it selected like this, you can do a Command I, not inverse, not that one. Command Shift I to select everything on the outside and press delete. Should leave you with something like this. And then just press delete to remove the background. So you should end up with something like this. And then once you have your picture saved, we're going to save it. Or once you have your picture, the background removed from your picture, we're going to save this. So what we're looking for is something like this. I have it in Illustrator now. And this is where we're going to start. Okay, so now that we have our animal put into Illustrator, we're going to lock layer 1. Click the little lock next to layer 1. That way we can't modify this layer anymore. You're going to create a new layer. And what I would do is call that layer trace, or something that you know that this is the tracing layer. You're going to start drawing your triangles off of this. And once we're in here, I'm going to find a spot that I can start tracing. And I'm going to start with a nose. And I'm going to use the pen tool. So I press P for the pen tool. I'm going to zoom in. And I'm going to divide his nose into a couple different layers. And you can see that I have a fill color on there. So I'm going to zoom back out again. I'm going to change the properties so that my fill is off using that red stripe. Turns the fill off. And then I'm also going to turn my stroke into something that I can see. And so in this case, I'm going to use a bright blue. And I'm probably going to increase the stroke size a little bit just so I can see where my so there's my stroke. I have a little green or I have a little teal colored triangle right there. And then what we're going to do now is, this is using the shift key, the command key, the option key. We're not going to do any circles of sorts, no curves, all polygons. But anytime you're going to start again, you have to go to a new anchor point. You're going to click anchor, and you see I still have it connected to the path. I'm going to go over and complete. So I'm just drawing triangles. And if I try to go to a triangle that I just finished, it's going to tell me that the only option here is to delete. But if I hold the shift key, it'll give me the ability to connect to it again. And I'm just drawing triangles. That's all I'm doing. Sometimes I might draw some kind of a trapezoid or a parallelogram or something that way. But for the most part, we're trying to get some triangles drawn. So this is going to take a little bit of time. It's not a very quick process, but you're going to continue just drawing these triangles. So once I get done here, I might come down this way and draw one for his mouth. I just want to make sure that I'm completing those triangles every single time. So I'm not going to go through and just draw two lines. I don't want to draw something like this where I have that and I press the escape key, because that leaves me without a shape. I can't fill that in. And so I want to make sure that if I'm going to draw something, that I'm using complete triangles. So what you're saying, Mr. Miller, is that you want me to draw triangles. Gotcha. 12. And then once we get some of the, if you do some of the main features first, that helps, because then you can just go from there. Sometimes you can have bigger triangles where you're going along, like in a bigger area. You might actually do something like this. There's one. The shift key will help when you're trying to connect to a new area. But you can follow those colors. So you can see that most animals have a specific color pattern. You can start doing that, following those a little bit. Your triangles don't always have to match onto an anchor point. You can have them meet in the middle of a path. You just have to remember to close whatever shape that is. I wouldn't do anything more than about 6 sides. That just starts to get confusing. 3 or 4 are pretty good. Here's what my parrot looked like when I got all done with it. Traced, it looks like this, and then colored. It looks like the first part of it looks like this. You're going to end up with something that looks like this, where it has, let me turn off that. There it is. Here's my parrot. I traced all these different areas on the parrot. And so then as we go through this part, after we get it all completely traced, we're going to start doing a fill color inside here, and I'll show you how to do that at a later time. Okay, so right now our main goal is to find an animal, place it, and begin tracing different areas of the animal using triangles, squares, trapezoids, parallelograms, pentagons, hexagons, and so on. So this will take a little bit of time. Make sure you're using a bright color for your trace line and a no fill for your fill color. The more triangles you have, the more shapes you have, the more detailed your object will be, or your animal will be. Like I said, this will take a little bit of time. It's not one of those things that we can rush through because you have to draw each individual shape. It's a technique that's used for video game development, for animations, all sorts of cool stuff. And every time they have to do stuff like this.